How's it going, everybody? Really excited to welcome Christian Delbianco to the virtual lacrosse summit. We're going to be discussing NLL shooters and from a goalie's perspective. Christian, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you for having me here.
How's life treating you, man?
Not too bad. I have a bit of a cold at the moment, but I think slowly getting over it and getting ready for a big weekend of practice.
That's awesome. Well, Christian and I kind of go back a few years because my son was a teammate of his with the Coquitlam Adirondacks and actually kind of lived in your basement for a summer, I believe.
Yeah, fortunate enough to have him in our house. He was a pretty good guest and obviously a pretty good buddy of mine since we went together.
You guys had some big wins together. Just so you guys all know what Christian's background is he's a two-time Minto Cup champion and a two-time Minto Cup MVP. Won the Champions Cup last year. Was second team all NLL as a 21-year-old and was on the Team Canada roster. And just so people know, it's not most goalies, if I'm correct, Christian, kind of come into their own more in their mid to late 20s. And you entered the league at age 18 and have been a regular for the last few years. So congrats on your start, and hopefully you guys can keep it going. Last year, 2018-19 was a big back-to-back championships with a Minto in the summer of 18 and then a Champions Cup in 19. How's the squad looking before we dive into these shooters?
I think pretty good, right? It's kind of every year. It's pretty competitively across the board. Everybody's pretty, it's the best of the best, right? So there's not really any time for excuses. We have a bit of a suspension right now and a couple injuries, but we're just going to grind it out and work through it.
Awesome, man. All right, so let's get into this. What we're going to do here, everybody, is Christian, if you may not know Christian, but by the end of this, you're going to understand that what a student of the game Christian Delbianco is. He is not just a student of the goalie position, but obviously he's a student of shooters. He's a student of box lacrosse, its history and everything. So I'm just going to roll this film, and then we're going to kind of go clip by clip here, Christian, and talk about what's going on. Sound good?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so Curtis Dixon.
Yeah, obviously a guy I know pretty well and pretty athletic, and he's great at just creating that space to get his shots off, right? And I think something that people don't realize so much is just how strong he is as an athlete. I think a lot of people see the speed, but he's a horse out there, and he does great work getting other guys open and obviously getting himself open.
What's really cool is this hard pump right here that freezes everybody and makes the goalie jump. What does that kind of hard pump do to you? What does it do to the defense?
Well, I think especially as you see him getting over top and getting downhill. So right now the goalie's high up and you almost want to step back in this situation, right? And the second that you start stepping back or as he starts getting closer to you, there's nothing you can do, right? Because you lose your lateral movement. So he kind of gets you in that sweet spot where he can go over you, go around you, or make you step back, right?
Yeah. And basically the goalie's in position for the shot right here. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. And as he goes downhill, right, your angle and you're almost challenging too much, but you have no choice because he's coming at you so fast, right?
Yeah. From a deceptive perspective, what is Curtis doing that makes his shooting special?
I think he's a guy that if 75% of other people picked up his stick, you wouldn't be able to throw a single pass, right? He plays really harsh hook stick. Yeah. He's obviously strong with the ball, but I think the crazy thing is he has that hook stick and he's still getting the ball out in half a second, not even, right? How quick it's coming out of that stick.
It's really interesting to see guys that play with big hook sticks like that. There's not a lot of them, is there?
There's a couple that I think another guy that I see like that is Stephen Keogh in Halifax. He's got this massive canoe bag in his stick, but that's just Dick's getting over top. And this is a really good example right here, right? As he gets over the screen and just zings it, right? Goalie can't really see it. He's hiding it behind his head there and just rips it off the D guy's head.
What is it about a hook stick that makes it hard for you to read?
I think the big thing, right, is the goalie's first nature, right, is when you're going over top there, as the player's going across, so is the goalie, right? So those guys who have the ability to pull it back short side, if you watch the goalie's right knee or the short side knee, it naturally goes down, right? Because you think they're going far side. because few guys can pull that back consistently.
So the hook stick is giving you your better pull. Is that correct?
Yeah, as far as my understanding is.
Yeah.
Just understanding space there, right? He kind of sets up the D guy there, and then obviously does kind of his vintage pull back short side.
Yeah.
And I think this is where his lacrosse IQ, I think, is so underrated. Just understanding how to position this guy and how to kind of do that little jump cut to the inside to get around that D guy's hip.
Did that go 5-hole or short side?
I believe that's 5-hole or short side there. I think low, though. You can do that one more time through. Yeah, it's a 5-hole.
That was 5-hole. The 5-hole in the NLL is a real tough shot to do.
It's massive, right? And I think it's really good that the league makes us use that smaller stick, right? Because I think it promotes athletes in that, right? I think it makes it a little harder to be just a true blocker. And obviously you have to respect the 5-hole, and I think it opens up some other stuff too.
What's really interesting is the way Dixon here is able to basically control his own man so that he can, like, you know, get him picked off, but then how he's able to control the switch, you know, faking like he's going underneath. And then look at that reach, huh?
Yeah. And I think the big thing is just, especially I think that's Pacer up there, just kind of sometimes you'll see them talking on the bench and they go out there knowing what they're about to run, right? Yeah. And they know, hey, get me the ball at the half boards, I'm going to do this and I'm going to get around, right? And I think just having kind of that thought beforehand rather than just going out there and winging it makes a massive difference in their two-man game. No doubt.
It's pretty interesting too, the screenshot. It's almost like he's finishing. It's almost like a wrap finish on a reach, you know?
Yeah, it's full extension, right? And you think you even see how realistically his body's pretty far back. You see most of his body on the inside,
right?
Of the D guy, and just the stick reaches around, right?
And look at the goalie step hard left, you know.
Same thing with that knee dropping, right? Which is super common. I don't think it's really that much of an error on the goalie. I think it's just your natural instinct, right, is to play the percentages. Yeah, there it is, right? Pretty textbook, I think, from him. And just shows you how hard that is to defend, right? Because it constantly gets almost every goalie.
So he basically went 5-hole again there, and it's making it look like he's going far side. And he either pulls it near side or pulls it 5-hole, basically.
Yeah, exactly. But he also, I think there's a lot of times, too, you'll see in a couple other clips that he kind of releases from that same point and kind of does like almost an underhand twist far side, right? And it kind of makes it so hard for the goalie to guess what's going on.
Underhand twist is something I've tried to do so many times, and it is so hard to do. Maybe it's easier with a hook stick. I don't know. It's kind of a hard shot to do.
I mean, I think kind of a weird correlation here, but one of the best guys in the league at throwing that right now is Graham Hossack. If you watch him on breakaways, he constantly will push like almost 15, 20 yards out. He'll push an underhand twist far side hip on goalies, and it just stings constantly.
Huh. So this time he actually did go far side with it, but it's the same thing. He kind of beats the first guy, and then he just shakes that switch, eh?
I think the big thing, right, is he's so athletic that those D guys tend to sit back because they're worried if he pulls them out, that he's just going to skin underneath, right? So as they sit back, he kind of uses that time and space to get around.
And then he just shoots right around him.
Yeah.
What about the bounce?
I think anytime you bounce in this league, especially with the small sticks, you're going to get a chance that the goalie's going to drop on it, right? That's just instincts and percentages for us, right? Especially some of the bigger guys, they kind of need to play it a little more honest slow. So I think whenever you can throw that bounce and kind of create some height after, it's definitely not a bad shot.
Yeah. He bounced it pretty far out too.
Well, that's how he gets his height, right? If you bounce it early. Yeah.
What about the way he hitches right before he releases it? What does that do to you?
I mean, I think the big thing, right, is almost when he catches it, it looks like he's almost backpedaling, or he might even be considering to do the roll underneath, right? So I think it's kind of a bit of that element of surprise. Where is he going? Is he passing? And then he kind of last second reaches around.
Let's watch the goalie as he fakes his shot first. Like there, he fakes it and then he shoots it. Does he get the goalie to move before he shoots it?
It looks like on that first hitch, Frank kind of goes down, but I mean, it's a hard one to play, right? Especially on the power play there. He's pretty deadly in that spot.
Yeah, what a beast this guy is.
Yeah, this one's just great understanding of transition, right? Really good down seal by Mitch Wild in transition to get somebody else open.
Right? Is this just underhand twister?
You can kind of see him right there, right? And then, yeah, he raises it up here on this one.
Is that what you would call an underhand twister or no?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, right? That's a hard one, right? If you look at Dix's stick there, it's with his ankles and he pulls it up far side high.
And he's pretty well underhand, so he's leaning left basically, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the hook stick there, just being able to raise that ball that quick, right?
For sure. But it's kind of hard with a hook stick to go far side sometimes. Maybe that's why he's able to like use his twisters to kind of keep it in there and push it far side. All right, so let's take a look at Randy Stotts, a very different shooter than Curtis Dixon. How do you characterize Randy and why did you pick him?
I mean, I think the big thing is I just love how he's patient. He's obviously a force in the two-man game, and you can kind of see this as a prime example there if you go back to that last one, right? Is he drops that front shoulder, and it's almost a floater far side, right?
Yeah.
And you can see what that does to a goalie, right? You're dropping, you're trying to play it honest, right? And he just kind of throws almost an off-change knuckleball to the far side high. I think the one thing not to be mistaken in that is it's not going fast, but that's right in the corner, right? There's not much space on the other side of that ball.
Yeah. And it's in field lacrosse, everybody calls it a leaner.
Yeah.
And he's got a stick. He joined us down in Florida a few weeks back, and his stick is built for this, whereas Curtis's is built for pulling it
short side.
Randy's is built for pushing it far side, and it's pretty interesting. I mean, they can put it wherever they want, but there's certain advantages on that, correct?
Yeah, 100%. I think the one thing is you see all this is him working off ball to get himself open, right?
Yeah.
You see just how patient, how many picks he's setting, right? He sets another, slips the middle, and then just waits it out.
Yeah, so talk about the way he's finishing, what you're thinking, and kind of what he's doing here.
Right? He's going there, right? You think you see that one big right foot steps forward, right? So as that front right foot leads, what do you normally think as a goalie? Probably going to go far side, right?
Yeah.
And then he kind of pulls it back one more time. You can see the goalie's weight shifts, and then he goes back 5-full.
Yeah, he's so good at – so he basically steps and fakes far, steps and fakes near, lifts you up, and then goes 5-full. Is that what
I'd say almost one thing. I think him, his brother too, honestly, they're both unbelievable players, but they almost use their body to fake you out, right? They use kind of their elbows, they use their shoulders, their body language, and his legs to kind of think that their weight's going across.
By the way, check out Randy's spin seal.
Yeah.
Right here, he spins to seal his own guy, gets him out of position, then he hits that, and that's amazing what separation he created on the day.
I think especially when you have him and Lyle together, they're obviously two top-tier righties in the league for really good reasons. So it's hard to defend, right? You have to play them honest. They're both a crazy threat, especially Lyle over top, and they kind of feed off each other that way. Yeah.
I think I asked Randy about this one time, and he said, "Oh, I've been doing this finish since midget." I mean, what would you call that? It's just pretty much just a little bit of a fake near and then a shot.
And just the velocity he gets it out with after, right? It's pretty quick. It's not like it's a really big wag. It's one fake and then zings it.
Yeah. His stick has such a quick release that's probably his biggest advantage in shooting, what you say. The accuracy that comes along with that too.
Yeah.
How about this one?
Go back on that one. Gets down, obviously. Lyle gives good CL. Does that even nail short side, or where does that go?
Far side, hip, off the pipe and in, it looked like.
Yeah. I mean, that's just him understanding, right, where to get to, obviously drawn up play. And It's hard, right? It's a hard league to play in. Every guy on that offense can shoot the ball pretty well, so you have to play it straight up. There you go. Just understanding 2-man slips the middle.
How about the way he finished this one? I mean, this is like amazing. Fake, fake, fake.
I think the big thing, right, is you see him jump up there and raise, right? You see how his whole body goes up.
Yeah.
And he spikes the 5-hole, right? So once again, you're reading his body language. He goes up, right? Hands are high. Goes for the jump. You think he's going dunk, and he hammers it, right?
Callum Crawford kind of does that. Have you noticed that? Where he kind of does a low, high jump and then throws it?
I think like the one way I describe Callum Crawford's game is he's almost playing basketball, right? He's almost dunking it. He gets so close to the net and so close to the goalie on his jump, and especially he'll jump to the far side, then hammer it short side on a twist almost, right?
This is a really interesting finish, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so cool. So he goes near, and then he goes low, high, far, far near, and jumps, and then hammers that thing. I mean, that's tough because, like, so you have to go up as the goalie here, don't you?
Especially as a short guy, right? Like Warren Hill's a guy kind of like me. Like we're not vertically gifted, I'll say. Like we're not 6'3", 6'4", right?
Yeah.
And he's a decent sized frame, so you have to kind of play that honest on the dunk.
It's pretty hard to like throw it that trajectory, you know, like to be able to get it down, especially because he plays with a stick that has.
Yeah, look at the angle on that, right? There's a certain point where you're going to bounce it high and wide.
Yeah. The one thing that's interesting too is that like you're always taught as a shooter never to fade behind the net as you're finishing, but he makes it work by coming up so high and making the goalie jump, I guess.
Yeah. I think the big thing in that all too, right, is having that ability to jump through the crease.
Yeah. All right. So what about this one?
That's just a short side, right? Just carrying down the alley. Once again, kind of, it's hard, right? That's such a tight window that he tucks that in.
Was it short side or 5-hole?
I think it's short side hit, almost by the knee.
Yeah. I can't Christian, can you tell where shots are going in by the way the goalie moves? Or do you need to actually –
A lot of times, right? I think a lot of times, too, is just by body language of the goalie. You can kind of see where it nicks off of, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times, if you get hit in the inside leg, you're going to try to close up pretty quick, right?
Yeah. And also, like, you know, with Randy, this is sort of a deceptive thing here, too, I think, is that, you know, he's normally shooting that far side leaner, that push shot. And so when he leans and extends like he's doing that, he can oftentimes get a goalie to step a little bit that way or freeze. And that's when he can yank it 5-hole or pull it near side, right?
100%, right? And I think those are two guys that probably played with and against each other quite a bit.
Yeah.
So it's almost that secondary mind game, right? Which is super common in our league, right? Guys who grew up playing against each other, played together in the summer, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of, goalies have a bit of advantage knowing the shooters, and the shooters have a bit of advantage knowing their goalies, right?
The mind game that you're talking about is really what makes box lacrosse players great shooters, is that they're not so much worried about the one shot they're shooting, but setting up the next one.
100%, right? And just understanding what the goalie's giving you and keeping them honest.
All right, so you wanted me to get some clips on Tom Schreiber for you.
Yeah.
How come?
I think just he's a guy, obviously, I think a lot of people know because of his field capabilities, but just how quick and how his feet keep moving the whole time. And you see him, how his whole body's going uphill, and then he just zings it full extension to the right side, right? And is able to get that pullback velocity.
Is this near side or far side?
I think that's near side.
That's kind of his shot, right?
Yeah, that's textbook. I think a lot of people have seen that quite a bit. I think the whole thing is just how quick he's moving while he does it, right? So once again, your natural instinct, right, is you're going across and your right knee's dropping.
Here again, he shoots like a lot of these guys. He's shooting around a player.
Yeah.
It was really interesting when I was doing my webinar with Bish the other day with the Adonax versus Brampton, and he said that sometimes that the Brampton defenders were approaching and giving up a screenshot, and he said, "Look, you as the defender, you need to take away the far side with your body, so
Yeah.
the goalie can play the near side. And that's sort of a defensive mentality and thought. And on the flip side, you want to shoot a screenshot anytime you can, correct?
Yeah, I think 100%, right? And it's hard. You get the goalie guessing sometimes, right, if we can't see it. And I think that's a big trust thing with our D guys and our goalies, right? I'm trusting them to have far side. They're trusting me to have short side, right? And we're trying to prevent those screenshot opportunities.
Is that like a known, like you're talking about that? You're trusting them to take away the far side with their body soaking the shot.
That's a very super common scenario. I know certain teams have situations where they play it on the power play the opposite way, which is a little uncommon in the NLL, but we've done it before in junior, right?
Uh-huh.
But I think that's kind of a pretty basic principle that a lot of teams use.
Because the goalie can't really take away both sides, even though the net looks like you can.
Yeah, I mean, especially in the NLL, it's that extra ball width on the summer league, right? And I don't think people realize how big of a difference that makes, right?
Is that it? It's exactly one ball width?
I believe it's like 4'9". So
4'9", summer's 4'6".
Yeah, so essentially a ball width. That's just a dunk, right? Obviously, pretty hard one to play as a goalie, just using his athleticism.
It is an interesting dunk too, because of the fact that he's able to kind of bring it back, you know,
and how fast he's going. And I think just like, especially in this league now, how common you're seeing. I don't know, a lot of guys are against the dunk, but I think it's forcing goalies to play it honest, right? I think it's forcing us to not challenge out as far and kind of be able to predict and defend that dunk, which I think brings out a little bit of athleticism in our position.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's a cool play. I mean, I don't think it happens too much. I think maybe people highlight it too much.
I think people highlight, and I understand the argument that, oh, it's so easy. But I think the other stuff it opens up, especially on the power play.
Exactly.
Put a guy behind.
Right.
And the goalie can't charge out to the top of his crease, right?
Exactly. I love that. You're right. How about that one? Would you say that the goalie should have had that one, or would you say that was just like a real surprise?
You know what? It's a surprise. I don't think that's one that Frank loved to let up, but you know what? That's the league, right? It's kind of just he's running around, he throws a no look, and stuff happens, right?
Yeah, for sure. He was definitely surprised, although the shot clock was winding down big time here. But the way he spins and then opens up, it looks like he's going to feed it across.
Yeah.
Your boy Dobie has that behind the back down pat, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does, especially when he finds that soft spot.
All right, we'll talk about this one.
That's once again, right? You see how his whole frame's getting across the cage, right? Full extension, the goalie leans to go across, and then he gets it back short side.
That's an almost impossible position for a goalie to be in.
And I think that's one that Callum Crawford's made a killing on, right?
Yeah. Except it's funny because Callum doesn't always dive. He almost kind of jumps
straight up.
Yeah. It's a little safer. When you dive, you might, you're just going to get landed on by people, Yeah.
And, I think the one thing I will say about that is a lot of people say, oh, D guys are always landing on them. That's a tough position for a D guy to.
Oh, it is, for sure.
Right? The guy's diving across. You go across, how are you supposed to hit him, right?
Yeah, no doubt. I'm not even saying it's bad. It's just like it's the risk of diving. You have to like.
No, I completely understand, but that's just kind of a point that I think a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah.
One thing I am super against, which I don't know if all goalies agree on this. I think when the goalies are diving on top of guys and it's come on now, right? I think you pretty well know when a guy's diving at your knees and when he's trying to score. So
yeah,
I don't think you should always take that too personal.
How about this one?
That one just seems like he pulls it straight overhand, which is something, a lot of his shots you do see a sidearm, so it's kind of a change up, right? He pulls it up and he almost twists it 5-hole.
Yeah, explain that, and we're going to see a lot more of that when we look at Cody Jamieson, but why does a twister 5-hole work?
Because I think naturally your body starts to lean, right? And especially as you lean, tend to see it's something that we all kind of fight as goalies as we start to lift, right? Or we start to lean off that short side post, and it creates those openings for shooters. Like that's, especially he's backstepping there, right? That's a hard shot to make.
That is.
I think, and that's why he's such a special player, right? There's few guys who can do that consistently.
From that range. Now, why does that go in?
It's hard, right? I think just because of that, because you know how few little guys can do that, right? The goalie's playing it pretty straight up, and he's picking a corner, right?
Is it? Would you say that he's screened here?
I think a little bit, right? It almost seems like he shoots that between the two guys in the middle there.
Yeah. Between his guy and these two guys, kind of.
There's not much that high guy can do, right? That high guy, I think, played it pretty well. It's hard, right? He's chasing him backwards. Obviously trying not to give up over top. And
yeah. Well, and I think pulling it back there, too, makes it harder for the goalie, right? Because he's anticipating the far side a little bit.
Yeah. Especially on the back pedal, right? I don't think how many times you see a guy shoot off the back pedal isn't too often. And just speed, right? Just on the run there.
This is more of a field shot, isn't it?
Yeah. It's almost like he's getting ready to go down the alley.
Where does he put this? Can you tell? Short side.
Yeah, it looks like short side skipper.
Is it in field lacrosse? A lot of people teach, don't bounce it, don't skip it, put it in the air because it'll get there quicker, right?
Yeah.
Without the bounce. But in box, it seems like the skipper and the bounce really works. What's the difference?
I think a big thing that personally, the way I look at it, right, is if you especially skip it early, right, you can still get your shot high, you can still get your shot low hip, right? And I think the goalie has to react to the first contact on the ground, then almost re-react from there, right, and track it off the bounce.
Yeah. I mean, high bouncers in field work.
Yeah. I think another thing, right, is the turf's a lot thicker and dense in field, right? Where the turfs we're playing on, the ball bounces quick off it, right?
Yes. So it's definitely a hard bounce.
Just patient there, right?
Cody Jamieson is absolutely the master of the twister and the curveball, isn't he?
Yeah, I think the one thing that kind of always said when I first started getting able to play against him is just kind of you see all these highlights and you see all this stuff that he does, and it almost seems like he's shooting the same shot every time, but the ball's going to a different place, right?
Yeah. He creates so much angle, improved angle with his twister, right? I mean, isn't that pretty much what it does? So the twister will open up near side angle. So if they put it near side and you don't move, there's space there that you wouldn't have had on a normal overhand three-quarter swing, correct?
And I think one thing that I think Austin Stotts does very well in a similar way is they almost pull it back so it looks like a twister. So their stick's on the right side of their body, and then they actually hammer short side.
How about this one?
Benny just down seals the low guy and then just fires off the hip again, right?
Yeah. I don't think the goalie could see that one.
No.
This is an older film, so it's a little fuzzy. But this is one of those shots. I mean, that is patented Cody Jamieson. And look at the way, and it's funny, Denon would always do this too, right? Denon Armstrong would always lean back. Sorry?
That's one thing I kind of always noticed. If you look at where his back and where his shoulders are, right, it's almost like he's leaning backwards.
Big time.
As he shoots that to increase his angle, right?
So by doing this and by his stick coming to the right, it's opening up near side angle.
Yeah, well, exactly, right? It's just changing your trajectory to get that short side, right? So rather than shooting through the goal, you're shooting around him.
And that's an interesting concept that you don't see as much in field lacrosse is when everybody can understand shooting around the goalie to the far side by reaching.
And I hope I don't offend anybody by saying this, but I think a big thing in that is because of how much harder it is to score in box lacrosse, I think it makes these players do more things and be more crafty, right?
No doubt. Right, because you're just not going to score short side with as much angle.
Right?
Yeah. Christian, you know how you know, if Dixon is shooting sidearm, that it's telling you far pipe, and when he pulls it, it's hard to read, right? And that's what's so good about his hook stick, because his sidearm swing naturally is going to sort of tell you far pipe, and then he pulls it near. And when players like Cody shoot this twister, it's telling you near pipe, and that's when you can go back against the grain and put it far pipe.
And that's to my first point that I kind of said when we first started talking about him. It's he can shoot the same shot, and it looks exactly the same, and he zings the far side high, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And it kind of leaves you sitting there like, Jesus, this is going to be a long night.
Totally. And if you basically like sit, don't move. And sometimes the guys, I feel like they have the angle, they don't move. Then he's got enough far pipe angle to stick it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But the amount of accuracy these guys have is incredible, because there's just not that much to shoot at, is there?
And I think you see the ball velocity too, right? How quick they're getting it out of their stick. I know Cody sometimes wags it a bit and has a little bit slower release, but the ball's still coming out quick. Like that's just right. That's almost another thing that he does all the time, where he carries over to that opposite side.
Yeah.
And I think anytime you give that guy space, right, it's going to be pretty deadly.
So he can make it look like he's going far side, and that's his shot there is probably curving it right back to the near side, right? Getting you to step with your left foot.
Yeah, and sometimes he'll do the same, where he'll twist it short side, or he'll raise his stick and jam 5-hole. That's right. Very much to shoot there.
I mean, just looking at his, like you said, the way he arches his back and leans back and brings his stick almost over his head, it's just so amazing. And how it's hard to get velocity on your shot when you do that too.
You know, like if you look at him, he might not be. He's kind of like Dane that way, where he's not like, he doesn't look like he's a super quick, but he's got a great first step and he's strong as an ox.
Yeah, he is. Where that one went near side?
Yeah, near side high. Yeah, that's a lot of space for him. Oh.
Huh.
That's hard, right? The D guy tried to get in the lane there, right, to prevent him from shooting around. Right, you see his approach, he kind of steps upwards.
Put this one more time. The way he sets this up is incredible.
Yeah, big step in.
But he actually looks like what he does is in the middle of his windup, it looks like he looks across, like he's going to throw it across.
Yeah.
And that freezes everybody, just hit it. Because this defender was coming across, and he basically looked right here, and then that opened him up underneath big time.
That defender, right, is trying to push him down to the middle guy, and then the middle guy has to respect the guy at the point, or X, right?
Oh, yeah. So he's moving there too, right?
Yeah, right? So he's looking at that lefty at the point.
He basically faked both of those guys.
Yeah.
Now talk about the shot. What does he do to bury this thing? Just twister near side?
Twister 5, I think.
The twister 5-hole, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but with the idea of that whole curve, when he raises like this, it looks like it's going to go near side. If you step or collapse that right knee, it opens up some 5-hole, correct?
That's almost, which I think a lot of guys at this level start to shoot, is that inside foot, right?
Yeah.
They're kind of looking for that little opening as you lean your leg a bit. It bangs off the inside foot. One guy, I think, growing up that was one of our coaches, Pete Tellis, that you kind of know pretty well, is he was one of the first guys to kind of show me that as you step across as a goalie, right? You're opening up that short side ankle to get banged off and in.
So in this case, you're stepping with your left foot. You're going to put it off the left ankle?
Yeah, exactly. So whatever foot you're leading with, it's your short side foot, right? Your short side foot tends to open up, especially if you're a righty going to the right.
Yeah.
Or you're lefty going to the left as a goalie, right? You're opening up that inside foot.
So here's Connor Fields. Really kind of just getting going in his box career. I mean, he played some junior box.
Yeah.
And he played a little last year coming off an injury. But what made you want to have Connor Fields?
I think he's a guy that obviously I think a lot of people love to watch in field, and personally I do too. I think just how smooth and how patient he can be, and some of the things that he does with the ball, especially as a guy who's quote unquote American, right? I think he has a great understanding of the box game. Like that's once again, right? Pulling it back, hard shot to do, low angle.
Yeah, what a shot. Yeah, he's got a combination of remarkable stick skills and remarkable quickness.
Yeah, just quick and right, fires it off the D guy's hip here, right? And just that ability to jump cut almost there, right? And change his direction that fast.
I went back too far, but here we go. Coming up. This is why is this so open?
I think just they're changing, right? They just switched off here. I think it might have been a turnover there or something that created kind of a transition here.
This guy really should be helping no matter what.
Yeah, but I think part of that is I think these two guys here, Brody Merrill and someone else, I think it might have been a transition look, right?
Oh, I got you. So this might be an O guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's Chow. Yeah, I mean, that's a hard one, right?
Why is it so hard?
Just how quick he's changing direction, right? He spin, he just fires it off the hip. That whole way around too, right? That stick's almost behind his butt, right? So he's almost hiding it, and then he wags it and rips it out, right? There you go. It's hard to track what you can't see. This is a great shot. Short set high. Right, obviously power short, so he has a bit more space. And I think the big thing that I kind of looked at on this one is you see how his hands drop low, so it looks like the short side, right? And then last second he raises his body up and gets it overhand.
That wind up, you see a lot of players do. I call it a low high wind up, and I feel like one of the things. Tell me if your opinion on this. Darius Kilgore told me that when you're thinking about deception and deceptive shooting, he thinks the most important thing is not the deception of where you're putting it, although that's important. He thinks the deception of when you're releasing it. And when your weight transfers to your front foot, the goalie's expecting the ball, and when it doesn't come, you can make him flinch.
I think a big thing, right, is which I think in almost every sport, what is a defense told to take away? Time and space, right?
Yeah.
The more time you have, the more chance you have to make that goalie kind of flinch or kind of, it's an antsy position there, right? As he winds up, you're trying to kind of get a better angle, try to predict where it's going, right?
Yeah.
So the more time and space you have, the more you can do.
And that lift, what I found is that when you're, like you said, he pumps low, shows low, and as he's lifting, there's like a hesitation in there that makes the goalie, like you said, antsy. Sick shot though. Low high one.
Not a lot to shoot there.
This is pretty cool the way he kind of goes back and forth to find.
Yeah, it just keeps
back to him. Yeah.
Right? And I think that's something where I like to say, like, for an American, right, he has an unbelievable understanding of box. Kind of gives me right. He goes back to the short side and then hammers the far side post.
Is that what he did on this one?
Yeah. So you can see I completely transfer my weight, right? You see how I step back with that left foot?
Say that again. What does he do?
You look on that first pump there, right? You see how my back left foot drops down, right? And as I drop that back left foot down, I'm actually leaning off the post, and then he gets his space, right?
Oh, I gotcha. For the near side shot.
Yeah. Technically, he's faking to his short side, but he's gotten fully across, right? So realistically, for me, if I just hold that post there, there's no shot, right? But he used that hesitation to get me to lean, and I obviously give up goal.
How about, obviously, John Grant Jr., maybe the best of all time at all of these shots, right?
This is a guy that I think I never had a chance to play against, but I think obviously we all kind of grew up watching and just seeing how creative some of his stuff is. And I think the one thing that I would say is just how strong he is to get his shots off, right?
Yeah, he's so strong.
Like, he's a pretty large man.
He is. You know, when you're that strong, your stick is, you can just move it quicker.
Just right, sets him up, fires off the hip, using that screen, right?
The way he approaches,
right? You see he kind of does like a stutter step, kind of taps his toes a bit, then lets it go.
I think he's doing that because he's trying to make the defender think he's going to dodge him, because he knows he wants to shoot it. So he approaches him with a dodging posture and the stutter step, and then all of a sudden, but he doesn't shoot around him though, did he? He shot it inside of him, didn't he?
Yeah, if you rewind that, right, that's a tough one, because the D guy, I think that might be salty there, is if you look, there's no one low with him, right? He's kind of on an island there. He has to play him straight up, because if you give up one side too much or you take too much high side, he's going to have that straight lane to the net. So they vacate the lefty around to the offside.
I'll talk about this for a second though, because here this defender he's definitely taking away the far side screenshot. I mean, Junior could probably find it, but it's not there where he's shooting. So he's shooting near side, and this is kind of what what Bish was talking about, right? Where your body takes away the far side, and the goalie can take away the near, but he can beat him there anyway.
Yeah, and like I said, there's a few guys that, like, if you look at that ball drop there, right? How tight of a corner he's putting that in.
Yeah.
And I think the goalie there is almost getting ready for a tuck and go.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah.
Probably, right? Yeah. And then he drops a little, and then he stings it up high. That's probably what makes it
right?
come.
If you look where his stick releases it from too, right? Like, we play in a league where I think the one thing that I would say that people don't realize, like, we're obviously going through some very strong talent guys here, but I think there's guys on every team that are the third righty or the fourth lefty that can still do these things also. Yeah, they don't do it as often, but the talent in this league is at such a high level at this point.
How about this one?
Kind of windshield washers it, right? Pulls it over his head.
Is that what he did on the defender? He shot, it was an over-the-top shot?
Yeah.
And what's he trying to tell the goalie here? Another Darius Kilgore quote is, every single time you're winding up, you're telling a story to the goalie. What story is he telling the goalie here, would you say?
I think the big thing, right, is you see as he kind of leans back, he does that same kind of thing as Jammer, right?
Yeah.
I think naturally you're trying to think, oh, is he going to pull short side? What's he going to do, right? And if you look at the height on his stick, right, once again, that's changing your trajectory to get over top, right? Like, if you look at full release, his hands are pretty high above his head.
Yeah.
He's that out high and almost shooting the ball downwards. Right, and that's the wag, right? Hesitation. It's a hard place as a goalie.
This whole thing, sick. Spin, throwback, the one more, and then hitch. So the wag is what we would call a hitch in the U.S., right? Is that what you mean? That wag right there?
Just hitches it.
Then he lifts, and then
he shoots that almost right off the D guy's head, right?
Does he?
Yeah, if you look at that, he's almost right behind.
And that was a short side shot?
1 second here, if you can go back on that.
I think so. The goalie looked like he thought it was going to go far side.
Yeah.
Man, those extra hitches, though, are so hard. Let's look at the goalie as he's hitching and see if he responds to it at all. Because, like, when you're moving, the hardest thing is to make a save if you've moved too early, right?
Yeah.
He was pretty quiet on the first one.
Pretty calm. That's Mike Poulin, though, too, right? So he's a veteran. He's obviously had great success for a pretty good reason. And I think he's another guy who understands the game pretty well.
Yeah. He's one of the best right now, isn't he?
Yeah. And honestly, I think the one thing that is so underrated by him that I think still a lot of people know is he's one of the best teammates you'll ever see and best guys in the sport, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So here, a little fake foot play, and then wag, and then bang, sting near side high.
Right, and that's the same thing where he's getting high and over top, right?
Yeah.
Because if you shoot far side high from your shoulder height, realistically, right, it's just going to hit the goal in the shoulder, where if you're over top of your stick, right, you're creating that angle to go over top.
I mean, is part of it, if you really want to just simplify this, it's like, okay, if your stick is going to go to about here.
Yeah, exactly. It's just trajectory.
And you just look at that angle.
Yeah.
It is there. It's over his shoulder. There is space. You can't see the space.
Yeah.
The deal is that you can't see it.
Yeah.
But it is there by the angle of your stick.
Exactly.
That's a really, really hard thing to not hard to understand the concept. It's just kind of hard to do it in real life when you can't see.
The one thing is, right, is coaches always preach that with inside shots, right?
Yeah.
Like you're a young kid, what do you tell a kid? Oh, the head can see what you can inside, right?
Right.
But people don't understand that's the same principle from outside, right? All these guys are doing all these stuffs to change their angles and change their trajectory to get it on net, right? And get it around goalies first through them.
Right.
Strong. Just falling kind of gets it around.
Yeah, he's not really looking there, is he?
No. Once again, right, he's just using his size and just getting inside, getting where he wants to be. That's a hard one, right? Catches it quick, kind of waits for the goalie to step over, right? He almost doesn't shoot that right away, though, right?
Yeah. Was there a little hitch in that? Is that what it was? Kind of a little hesitation?
He kind of catches and waits, right? He catches it, then lets it go. I know it seems like that's pretty quick to get out.
Yeah.
But it's almost like there's a half second, then he waits for the goalie to step over and gets it 5-fold, right?
Yeah. All right. Your teammate, one of my favorite players in the world to watch. This guy is such a freak with what he's able to do.
Yeah. He's pretty special for pretty good reason.
So this is last year in the Champions Cup, eh?
Right, just using the screen, getting around. Smart lacrosse.
Look at that reach, huh? Similar to the one we saw out of Dixon. It's just this real extension. I mean, this guy's trying to take away the far side with his body, but he just can't do it enough.
Yeah.
By the way, that's when you said before, I never really thought about it, but if you're going to really try to take away that far side and you can sell it, it allows you to tuck and get under so easily too. That's why that works so well, right?
Yeah. Kinger creates quite a bit of space there, and then Skipper.
All right, so the skipper, it gets underneath. I mean, it's stick side hip is a hard shot, anyways, and the skipper.
Yeah, I think the big thing, right, is you see how early that hits the ground, right?
Oh yeah, outside the crease.
Yeah.
And by the way, he's shooting through massive traffic. I mean, he's putting it in between or between the legs of those guys.
Yeah. And that's hard as a defenseman, right? I think kind of it's that hard line of trying to soak shots and trying not to screen your goalie, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's those situations where it's kind of definitely not for lack of effort, just stuff like that happens.
These plays coming out of the box in transition are just insane. This guy's draped all over him. What does he do here?
I think the one thing I'd say is just how explosive he is out of the gate is pretty impressive. He doesn't necessarily look like the craziest athlete in the world, but he gets that 120% out of his body, and he has that strength to get under and get across, right?
Yeah. And that's against Matt Vink.
Yeah, one of the best in the game, or the best in the game. Screen, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a trend that you see with all these guys, right? All these guys understand that and understand how to use it, right? And it's not like they're just blindly throwing it around the screen. They're still picking their spots, right?
For sure. Amazing. And the extra hitches, that wag you're talking about.
Wag, yeah.
I mean, it just makes it so hard for you to know when it's coming.
Yeah.
But Vink couldn't see this at all. Look, he actually like stepped the wrong way after the ball was in. He's like,
it's hard, right? It's hard.
Yeah.
Like with the amount of velocity and the skill of the shooters, right? If you can't see a ball, it's not much of a chance you have. You're pretty much playing a guessing game. This is great patience by Dix here on this one. Waits for it right. That D guy kind of gets there too quick and doesn't serve it.
And just a one-timer far side.
And Dope's just understanding, right? You watch Dope's get there in transition. Finding the timing and space. So that's a great work by Kinger there.
Is that Kinger doing the reverse seal?
Yeah, moving Gilray down there. Right, and he gets underneath him.
You know, when we talk about, seal picks for guys to come over the top?
Yeah.
This is like a reverse seal pick where you kind of hold them so you can go
underneath so he can't switch it, right?
Yeah. He's just holding them just.
This low guy, right? I don't know if you can see my arrow here. This low guy here this high guy, is pushing down to his low, right? And he's just down sealing the low guy so he can't help him anymore.
Yeah. But you can tell he's holding him because he's let go of one hand and he's still that's the trick on this thing is to be able to hold the guy subtly enough that nobody can really see that.
Exactly, right? It's how much can you get away with.
Yeah. And then air Dobie.
Yeah.
It's good stuff, man. Christian, I just want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your knowledge and insights on all of these shooters, some of the best in the world. And you're among the best in the world at what you do, and you got a long way to go to be as good as you want to be, I'm sure. Good luck in the season, and thanks so much for taking the time.
No, thank you very much for having me, right? This is something definitely it's fun, right? It's fun to pick each other's brains and just kind of even to think on that higher level, right? Just about how guys are scoring and what they're doing is not only something that can help shooters, but it can also help goalies, right?
For sure.
Have that understanding of what guys are trying to do.
No doubt. Well, listen, man, let's be in touch. Good luck down the stretch here. Can't wait to see you guys play, especially when you get back to full strength, and hopefully you guys can repeat.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
All right, brother. Take care.
Take care.